Parshas Vayikra, the third book. Second portion in Leviticus chapter 1, verse 14. We started yesterday with offerings called Nedavos, offerings that are not obligations to give. And we spoke about giving from cattle, from sheep, and the like. We continue with now giving, but if you will, a lesser offering, which we'll come back to. I don't think it'll be here. Of giving from fowl. Okay, the mina oif, and if it's from the offering is from oif. Oif is birds. Oila, this is even though it's an offering, it's an obligation, but it's an oila offering, a burnt offering. Carbonai Hashem, his offering to God. So then you should bring from turtle doves, turtle doves and v'dei yaina, or from young doves, as carbonai, his offering. Rashi, in verse 14. You got there? Take the booklet. Okay. Verse 14, mina oif, v'loi kola oif. So it says from the fowl. It could have just said bring of a fowl. Why does it say from the fowl? Because not all of it. Because it said by the oila offering that it must be unblemished, male, from the cattle or from the sheep or from the goats. That's a requirement of perfection when it comes to, and it has to be a male when it applies to livestock. However, it's not a requirement of perfection, and that it has to be a male by the fowl. So you might think that therefore, okay, if it doesn't have to be, again, perfect, the fowl, or it doesn't have to be male, right? Because it didn't say here male before we said male in yesterday's teachings, but here it doesn't say. So now you might think, and it does, and also it doesn't say the word tamim, which means pure, right? Complete and whole. So now, if it doesn't have to be complete and whole, so you might think that even if it's lacking a limb, that would be acceptable as an oil offering. Talmud Leimar min ha'oif. So therefore it says from the fowl, meaning although that there's a blemish. In other words, from the fowl, not all fowl is accepted. From the fowl, they will be accepted. What will not be accepted? Missing a limb. But if it's not pure, not complete, rather, it is like another has a nick, like for a sheep or an ox that's brought. If the lip or the eye had a little blemish to it, it would not be acceptable. But for the fowl, it would be acceptable, except for missing a limb or. Would it be lacking a limb? I don't know if that means broken or just lacking a limb. So that's why it says min ha'oif. Okay. Continuing with Rashi, teirim, turtle doves. Gedalim v'loy ketanim. Mature turtle doves means mature ones, but not young ones. B'nei yoina, ketanim v'loy gedalim means young ones and not mature ones. Both kinds you can bring. So now, again, Rashi goes back on these words from the turtle doves or from the young doves. This is to exclude the beginning of the yellowing in both of these types. and that should that shehu pasul, that invalidates the offering. If they have so the neck feathers of both the turtle dove and the dove take on a yellowish shine when they reach maturity. So from means over there to invalidate a bird of either species being used as an offering at the beginning of the yellowing process. Because such a bird is mature with regard to doves, and the dove is supposed to be not mature bird, right? So if the dove is maturing, so then it's not good. The cotton eitzel teirim and the immature regarding to the turtle doves, that's also not good because it needs to be mature. In other words, if you're bringing a turtle dove, which is a mature bird, right? And then you bring it when it's still immature, so then that's not valid. And the other way around, if your intent is to bring a dove, which is an immature bird, right, still young, and now it's yellowing its feathers, so they're becoming mature, then that's invalid. Is that clear? No? If you had feathers, you'd be very clear to you. You don't have feathers, so it's not so clear. So one grows into the other, right? Yeah. So the yellow feathers is what makes the distinction, right? Non-yellow is still immature. Yellow makes it mature. But what if you were intending to bring a mature and it didn't have the yellow feathers? So that means it's not valid because you meant to bring the mature run, right? And the other way also. Huh? How can you tell it's elder? Well, that's what we just said, the yellow feathers. The yellow feathers are what makes it mature. Without yellow feathers, it's not mature. So it depends. What are you planning to bring? If you're bringing a mature one and it doesn't have yellow feathers, so therefore it's not mature, it's immature. It's still a b'nei yoina, it's still a young dog. And therefore it's not valid. Because in other words, what you intend to bring is what you need to bring. That's the point. Okay. All right, 15. And the kayin, he will bring it near Elamizbeach, where? To the altar. Malak is Roshan. Now this is interesting. He nips off the head, and this is done. He's got a long fingernail. A long fingernail, and he cuts the back of it. As we'll see more. From the back. It's not with a knife, not at least not the beginning part. And then it will go up in smoke on the altar. And then the blood from the bird is nimtza, pressed, its blood, al kira mizbeach, on the wall of the altar. Okay, let's see further. Okay. 15. The kohen shall bring it. Afilu preda achas yovi, even a single fledgling he should bring, because it says he doesn't say krivu, which is plural. He krivoi, he means bring it, even if it's just one fowl, right? One single bird, he brings it as an offering. In other words, you don't have to bring, because the previous verse spoke about Tairim, which is a Tor is singular, Torim, Yud Mem at the end makes it plural, right? So it's many. So you might think that only when you have more than one, you will bring it as an offering. After all, he has two hands that he can carry at least two, if not more, right? Nope, even just one, as this verse says. And the Kayan, he's going to bring it, and he's going to perform what's called Malika, right? A Malika Bekli. This method of slaughtering Malika is not done with an implement, with a vessel, with a knife. Ella the Atzmei Shel Kayan, but rather with the Kayan himself. Kaitzitz b'tziparnoi mimul ha'irith. He cuts with his fingernail at the bird's nape. Right? At the bird's nape, That's where he cuts. Opposite. Oh, one second. No, so I'm sorry, no, from the front, the opposite of the back of the head. Yeah. The, huh? It's not painful. The chaysech, I know I never had it happen, so I can't tell you. So, I'm not a bird. Yeah, I tried flying, it didn't work. I fell. I fell. Yeah, more coffee, exactly. All right. So he cuts it with the fingernail of the bird's nape, then he severs its backbone until he reaches the signs, meaning the gullet, the esophagus, and the windpipe, the trachea. He cuts it on and he cuts them. So yeah, it's very, and it's not a simple thing. I even know how to do it, by the way. It's a very, you have to be very adept to be able to take your finger and actually have to hold it with the same, in the same hand. We'll see. I don't know if it's going to be over here exactly. Okay. The nimtza damai. Now the blood is squeezed out. Lashem meets apayim. This word nimtza is a new word that we have. Yeah, means to extract. Meets apayim. So he's giving another example of this word that's actually in Proverbs. Extract of anger. Ki apam mates. So the word mates means juice that has been depleted. Kevish beis hashchita. So what does the kohen do? The kohen presses the back of the slaughtering, opening, slitting the again the esophagus and the food pipe and the windpipe, right? And then then he takes from the blood from there and he puts it against the wall of the altar. Adam and the blood is squeezed out and runs down the side of the wall. Don't do this before breakfast. Eat first and then do this. Malak v'hiktir b'nimtza. So the three things that are happening over here. There is malika, right? That's with the fingernail, and then it goes up in smoke, hiktir, and then the blood is squeezed out on the altar, on the side of the altar. Is it possible to say this? Now, how can you do that? How's it possible you can make it smoke on the altar and then squeeze out the blood? If it's on the altar already, how can you take the blood now? It's being burnt on the altar. So the order seems a bit out of order. Just as regarding them putting up up in smoke. The head is by itself and the body is by itself. In other words, the head is completely detached from the body, right? Malika Cain. So too when it comes to Malika. So in other words, what it means is you're putting, the way I understand at least, you're putting first the head and the body severed from each other. So the head goes separately on the altar and the body goes separately on the altar. So therefore the hiktir, I don't know if that means, I'm not, one second, let me just see here if I make sure I understood this. It seems only to say that it needs, and others it needs to be ready for the altar before you take the blood and put it on the right. So it means that even when they use the fingernail, it had to go through the trachea and the esophagus, right? What happens if it doesn't? Oh, if it doesn't go completely, then you could use a knife afterwards. After that, you can, but it needs to at least go through those two signs, or at least I think like more than half, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then you could use a knife. But the point in the what the verse is coming to tell us, why is it saying mizbeah, to put it to smoke it on the altar and then the blood, right? It seems to be out of order, is to tell us that it needs to be severed before it goes onto the altar. Completely severed the head from the body. Okay? And if it means that you need to use a knife, fine, use a knife. Okay? A simple understanding, Rashi says, invert the words. Maluk b'iktir. And you should perform a lika, and then you should put up in smoke, but before putting in smoke, the blood would have already been squeezed out. In other words, in other words, it will already be squeezed out the blood on the altar before you put it up. Why Rashi puts it second and not first? Good question. We need a Rebbe for that. Okay, we're good. 16. Beheser es murasei netzoisa netzoisa should remove its crop along with its entrails, it says over here. Meaning, no, I think it means with its no, well, murasa means it's the digested food, it's waste.
When you get a chicken now, you get those things like liver and chicken and the stomach inside the chicken. So you're paying for weight for the liver and the stomach, but it's good in soup.
Okay, let's see. You should cast it next to the altar, Kedma on the south side of, the east side rather, of the altar. The east side is to the opening, El Malkam Hadashin, to the place of where the ashes are. Let's see, Rashi, 16. We're good? Yeah? Good. We're good. Okay. Morase, Mokamare, that's a place of waste. So we're Morase, means the waste, Vizel is Efik, and this is called the crop. Okay. In other words, it's inside. It's not the waste that came out, right? Not excrement. We're talking about it's the waste that is in the crop that is here. You have it in like some stomach area. I think it's after. Yeah, it's in there. It's but it's waste that's in there. Okay. Rashi b'noitzitza in its innards. So noitzitza is the innards. In b'nei me'aha, its innards. B'noitza loshen davar hamaos. The word noitzitza is something repulsive. B'noitza kamay kinotzu gam no'u. That they became repulsive and even slip. He's just giving an example of that the word means repulsive. So that would target Monkelis.
The Kohen used to do this, right? For the Levites.
Kohen.
Kohen, huh?
Yes, Kohen, not the Levites. Yeah, we said the Hikriva Kohen, right? Remember, look at the verse before, right? It says Hikriva Kohen to the altar, Umalak, and then he does the Malika, right? Yeah. Which is, but by the way, thank you for pointing that out, because yesterday, if you remember, the Kohen's duty when it came to cattle, right, or sheep, was only from after slaughtering. So the slaughtering could have been done by a Levite or even Israelite. Even Israelite could have done the slaughtering, but not this. This is a Kohen, has to do it. So there was an exactingness there. This is what Uncle explains, but uchle with the digested food. This is a midrashic interpretation of Abba Yossi ben Chanan. He says you take the gizzard with the crop. All right. The gizzard is down here. Here's a picture of the gizzard. Okay. It sounds like the old, yeah. But our rabbis, the sages in the Talmud, Keder Savi Bazevik Asakim Be'ena Ruba, that he cuts the window like a hole in the body and the bird around the crop with a knife, and he removes it with the feathers that are on the skin. Okay, so it looks like we have a debate over here of what this means and what they're supposed to do. Regarding the Eila offering of an animal, which eats only from the feeding trough of its owner. That you should wash its innards and its feet with water and cause it to go up in smoke. A cow or sheep, that you put their innards onto the altar and it's brought up on smoke, right? However, now let's continue. But fowl that are generally, they sustain themselves from stolen property because they go on others' property, fowl, and they're eating other people's property, right? Therefore, it says take the innards and throw it. Because he ate from stolen, so therefore it doesn't go on the altar. It's put on the east side of the altar. That's what the verse said, right? Interesting.
With the ashes?
Where the ashes are, exactly. Got that? Because yesterday, remember, we said the innards goes on the altar, but that was because cows, they eat on your field. But fowl, that's why they're foul. They eat other people's, right?
Foul ball.
Foul ball, right? Foul ball, right? Off, not on the playing field, exactly. Foul with a U, with a W, it sounds the same, right? Following everybody? We're good? Yeah. Menachem Hillel, you're good. Chav is good. Diane, we're good.
Yeah,
right.
everything is okay.
Excellent. So so it's put next. The innards are put next to the altar on the east side, like not on the altar, but just on the side of the right. On the east of the ramp. The east of the ramp is towards the entrance, right? El Makom Hadeshin, which is the place of the ashes. Makom Sham Trumas Hadeshin B'chol Boiker. This is the place where you put the ashes every morning. V'dishan Mizbeach Hapnimi, and the ashes that are removed from the interior altar, from the golden altar, and for the menorah. V'kulam Nivloim Sham B'mkaimim, and all of them are swallowed up miraculously there in their place. That's what it says. That's why it says, put it El Makom Hadeshin. No, it doesn't say Limakom. Okay. Verse 17. We're good? The Shisa Oisai. And now, Shisa means to split it. The bird now. The Knafav, with its wings, with its wing feathers, it says here, meaning intact, right? So now you're splitting it, but it's intact. Lo Yavdil, do not tear it completely. V'hiktar Oisei HaKayin, and the Kayin should now smoke it up on the altar, right? Putting it on the altar. ala eitzim, on the wood, the firewood that's on the altar, right? Asher al ha'esh, that which is on the fire. Oilahu, this is a burnt offering. Ishe, um, Ishe, fire offering. Oila means raised up. Oila, Ishe, fire. Reich nichoich Hashem. It is a pleasant fragrance to Hashem. Okay, Rashi, and she saw, and she'll tear it apart. Then she saw ela biad. Tearing apart means only by hand, right? And where do we know this? Because we see by Shimshon, by Samson, that he tore it apart as a kid is torn apart. Kid meaning not a child kid, but a young goat, right?
Mentioned his name yesterday. No.
A big knafa, okay. Big knafa, as it says, im knafa means along with its feathers. So that's interesting. Feathers. Kanaf is usually wings, right? But here it means feathers with wings. Not exactly clear how. He does not have to pluck the feathers from the wings. Biknofav, I think because it's speaking about rip away, don't rip away. So what do you mean don't rip away? Don't rip away the feathers from the wings. Okay. Biknofav, Rashi continues. Along with the feathers, Neitze mamish, actual feathers, speaking about the feathers. But is it not true there's no ordinary person who can smell the harsh smell of burning feathers? Right? So in other words, putting the wings with burning feathers, terrible smell. As we know that when you get a chicken and there's still a few feathers left on it, right? It makes a terrible smell, right? Right? And you become nauseated by it. No? That's what Rashi's asking. So why would the verse say to smoke, to cause it to smoke? So smoke up. It's in order that the altar should be full, and beautified. The carbonai shel ani of the offering of the poor man. Because this is a poor man's offering, right? Yesterday we had the rich man's offering. He can afford a sheep, he can afford a cow. The poor man can't afford it. So now you're going to pluck it. It's going to be not going to be much there, right? So you want to make it look full. So that's why, even though smell-wise, it's,
Perfume.
No,
Lo
not exactly.
yavdil, Rashi continues, do not separate it. He does not take it apart completely. Into two pieces. But he tears it along the back, leaves it intact in the front. Right, that's what it means. Okay. And it says concerning the fowl offering that is a pleasant fragrance, right? And it also says by an animal, by a livestock, also says a pleasant fragrance. This is why they both tell you it means that whoever gives an expensive offering or someone who gives a modest offering as only a bird, as long as he directs his heart towards heaven. That's what's important. Others do for the sake of God. That's right. Chapter 2, verse 1. We're good? Yeah? Oh, man. Okay. The nefesh ki sakriv korban, when a person, when a nefesh, a person, he will bring a offering of a mincha, a meal offering, la Hashem for Hashem. It should be from fine flour, karbono, his offering, yatak aleha, and he should pour on it, shemen oil, olive oil, venos and aleha levina, and he should place on it frankincense. Rashi. An nefesh kisakri, when a person of soul will bring loy nemar nefesh b'chol karmanas nedava. The word soul, which is nefesh over here, right, is not used in reference to any voluntary offerings, mincha, but only with a meal offering. Others before didn't say that. Didn't say the word soul, right? It says Adam. It said we had actually, right? We learned that yesterday, right? And or it says just when doesn't even say. It just says when you're bringing the offering, it doesn't even mention the person. Here we're mentioning the person and their offering, right? But they're called a soul over here. So why is that? Whose practice is dedicated to bringing a meal offering? Who will do that? Oni, a poor person. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Hashem says, although the poor man's offering is modest, I consider it on behalf as if he offered his soul. Even though he's giving a modest offering, I consider it that he's giving up his soul. Got it?
No.
So his offering has to be from fine flour. One who says, I take upon myself a meal offering, without specifying what sort of meal offering he's bringing. Maybe mincha seilis. He brings a meal offering of unbaked fine flour, right? This is the first of the meal offerings. Right?
Question. The body of the cow is bigger than a dog or now the
Mincha.
now if, of course I know that the rich man can afford this cow and
Right.
but the sacrifice it has the same value.
That's what we just said. We said as long as you do it for the sake of heaven, and now it says that he's giving his nefesh, right? He's giving. I consider it as if he offered his soul.
But let's say this poor man, in a few months, he's able to afford a cow. So
But if he already gave his offering, then he gave his offering. Doesn't have to give again.
Okay,
But if he has to give an offering afterwards, so then you give what's suited for you to give. You have to give what's suited for you to give. Okay. So this is the first one in meal offerings to give. And you take a scoop while it's still a fine flour, as stated explicitly further in the passage. Because here there's 5 varieties of meal offerings that we're going to mention over here. And all of them come baked before the scooping procedure. Chutz mizu, except for this one. That's why this one's called a fine meal offering. And all of them are from fine flour, right? But this one is called a meal offering of fine flour, particularly. Why? Because it's the only one that you take a scoop of it, and it's placed on while it's still flour, as opposed to after it's baked. It's baked and you put it. Then you take a scoop. You would take a scoop with like 3 fingers, and then you would put that onto the altar, right?
Can you find that in Montreal?
What?
That bread. Can you find it? Can you find it?
This is no, because this is made from flour and oil, right? Anyways, this is an offering on the altar. Okay. Okay. Selis. So, Ein Selis Ela Minachitim. Selis is only from flour, wheat rather, right? Fine floured wheat. Shenamar Selis Chitim, as it says, fine flour of wheat. Vein mincha pchusa isarin, and a meal offering cannot be less than a tenth of an ephah of fine flour. Shenemar v'isarin says the mincha, a tenth of an ephah of fine flour for a meal offering. Isarin lechol mincha, a tenth of an ephah for every meal offering. Someone, you have the chumash over there. It says it's 11 ounces or something like that, right? Tenth of an ephah is, I think, 11 ounces, right? 11.6 ounces. You have it there? I think it says. I think that's how much flour. Yatag aleh shemen, and you pour oil on it, al kula, on all of it. And then you put frankincense on it, right?
6, yeah.
11.6, that's the flour, right? Yeah.
You do that 2 days too. You got 10%.
Yeah. And also and then you put frankincense on it. Al mikzoso, on part of it. Meniach kemetz levaina aleha. He places three fingerfuls of frankincense. These are three fingerfuls, right? So it goes like that, puts it into part of it. On one side. Okay, why do you say as such? Because there's no inclusion after an inclusion, but an exclusion. So when Torah makes two statements in which each one would be considered an inclusion, if it would be would stand alone, but the second statement is interpreted rather than an inclusion as an exclusion rather than an inclusion. So the term aleha, on it, is an inclusion statement in the broadest terms. So it means on all of it. So you put the oil on all of it, but then it says aleha on it, so that it sounds like an inclusion, right? But no, one inclusion follows by an exclusion. So it means not on all of it, but part of it. Okay. Alternatively, we could explain. Oh man, now we can get finished over here. Shemen al kula, the oil is poured on all of the flour, because it becomes mixed with it, right? The oil gets mixed with the flour. And it's scooped up with it on the burn, to be burnt on the altar. As it says, he scooped up from the three fingerfuls. Misalta mishamna, from the fine flour and its oil. But the frankincense is placed on a part of it, not on because it doesn't get mixed. It's not like oil and flour that they get perfectly mixed, right? So nor scooped with it. Shenamar, as it says, al kol levainosa, as well as all its frankincense, which implies shekama said after you scoop up with three fingerfuls, you gather all the frankincense that's on it, and you set it smoking on the altar. Interesting. So here, what are you doing? You're taking flour, pouring oil on all of it, right? Because it says aleha upon it, all of it, so it gets all mixed together, right? Then you put only the frankincense on a part of it. Okay. You scoop up not where the frankincense is. The coin then goes like this, right? From oil and flour only, frankincense not. That goes onto the altar. And then also the frankincense, now that it's all gathered in one place easily, is also then gathered and put onto the altar separate. And that's called a korban mincha, right? When you want to daven mincha, now you know we're, right? Okay, we're good. Wow. I thank you all for this because I never learned this properly as well as I do with, together with you. Next Rashi, he shall pour, place, and bring. Malamed, this teaches us, Shiyitzika, Avalila, Ksher, and Bizarre. That pouring the oil on the flour and mixing the oil and the flour are valid by non-Kohanim. Because it only says, look, and let's go to verse 2. Look at the verse 1. Does it say the word koyin there? No. In verse 1, it doesn't say the word koyin, right? It means that everything we just described, an Israelite could do. Got it? Now it says in the next Ve'avia el bnei Aaron HaKohanim. Now bring it to Aaron the Kohanim. Right? And then he will take 3 fingers, he shall scoop it, right? 3 fingers, misalta mishamna, from its flour and its oil, al kol ha'manaisa, as well as the frankincense. V'hiktar ha'koyin is askarasa, and the koyin, he will smoke it up on the altar. Askarasa, that's a memorial, hamizbecha, on the altar. Yishereach nichayet l'Hashem, it is a fire offering that is a pleasant fragrance to Hashem. So it's only now that the koyin, before that, it didn't say a koyin, so an Israelite could have done it. Got it? The Kohanim kamatz, and the Kohanim shall scoop, mitzvah ve'elech, from the scooping and onwards. Mitzvah kahuna is a commandment for the kohen to do, and only the kohen. The kamatz misham, and he shall scoop up from there. Mimokam sheragli hazar oimdeis, from the place where the feet of the non-kohanim may stand, right? Because it says misham, from there. Where's the there? Where's there? In other words, where the Israelite did the job, from that point, he takes it from the Israelite and then scoops, right? This teaches us that the scooping is valid anywhere in the courtyard, right? Because sometimes it was only valid in a certain place, like the slaughtering of the animal was only on the northern side, you could do it. But here it says from there. So meaning wherever the Israelite is, anywhere in the courtyard, it is permissible. Even the 11 amas where the feet of the Israelites, those who are neither Kohanim or Levites, may tread, there it is permissible. Oops. Got it?
At the outer ring.
Molei kumtzei. Oh my gosh. No, it's just we have Tanya now, and let's.
Yeah, you have Tanya now.
Okay. Huh? Thank you. We're going to stop here. All right. Sorry.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you in a few moments.